What's up, everyone? Welcome to Normal America Show. Crisco, getting in the pride mood. I wanna have pride like my mother had, not the kind that they had in the Bible that makes you bad. What's up? Loving seeing Kick on the chat there. So if you're on Kick now, follow me on Kick. It's robnoerr, kick.com/robnoerr. Follow me there. You can be part of the group chat here. The only one I can't figure out is Rumble. So please check out that Kick. Yeah, the Avett Brothers, before they went super woke, love the Avett Brothers, still love them. As far as their music goes, their older album. I can't speak much to their newer albums, but that song, Perfect Space, it's one of my favorite lyrics. I want to have pride like my mama had, not the kind that they had in the Bible that makes you bad. Really thinking about that in Pride Month, huh? I'm not super religious. I'm really not. Maybe we'll do that. I'll have to get off YouTube if we're going to do all that stuff. Maybe we'll do some Macho Man. You know what blows my mind? You know the lead singer for the Village People wasn't gay? Unless I'm ill-informed, that kind of blew my mind. But good for him, right? Yeah. So, been busy. Proud of my super hot wife and my half-decent kids. I have a hot wife and a half-decent kid, singular. Yeah, it's been a busy weekend, so I apologize. I've been working. This is my last week. I had to put my foot down, as I mentioned on stream the other day there, and hopefully I'll be working less. Unfortunately, I don't know that means in the very short term that I'll be streaming more, because this weekend I actually have some stuff planned. My birthday is July 4th. I will be working my birthday. And so my wife got me tickets to the Pittsburgh Pirates with a bunch of my friends. So we're going to go out and then spend the night at a friend's place in Pittsburgh, cook out and all that good stuff. We'll probably tailgate. I'll be honest, the Pirates are my favorite. What's up, Lil Peen? Pirates are my favorite. I used to love watching baseball. Now that I'm a dad, the woke stuff certainly has part to do with it, but most of it's just being a dad and having different priorities. So I've probably watched 2 Pirate games. I went to a game at work with my job. I went to a game earlier in the year, and then I watched 1 game on TV with my client that I take care of. So I don't watch them like I used to. I used to listen to every night on the radio to the Pirate games. But yeah. So that's the plan here this weekend. Other than that, it's been good. I know it was a crazy news weekend. Thanks, Lil Peen. I am a beast. That's why Destiny won't debate me one-on-one. It's always panel stuff. It's got to be... Go back and watch the debate we did on Burisma. It's got to be like 5-on-1. That's Destiny's wheelhouse. I'm the opposite. I would rather debate. I don't want 5 partners. I'd rather be by myself. As long as I get equal amounts of time. By the way, Pisco was supposed to debate me. Hopefully I'll be getting in touch with him. And we're going to be talking about corruption and all of that good stuff at some point. Yeah, he won't do the one-on-one. He knows better. What's he have to gain from that? All the big lefty streamers, they don't want to debate me one-on-one. Yeah, the Hunter Biden stuff. GOP is useless. All true, Lavin. All true. Someone said, I'm the only Twitch streamer worth a shit anymore. Yeah, that's always been... No, there are Twitch streamers I like. But, yeah, it's barren at this point. Political content, I mean, look at it this way. For everyone, Trump being in office, for the mainstream media, for political commentators, etc., was a boon. Understand the way Twitch works, and YouTube's the same way, and most other social media places. The narrative is set by the establishment left. And so when Trump was in office, there was so much to talk about: conspiracies, about how he was, literally Hitler. He was a spy for Vladimir Putin. He was going to ship off gay and black people and turn them in camps, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He was abusing children at the border, locking them in cages, blah, 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 blah. And particularly you see on this online politics sphere, here's the deal. The lefties, when politics isn't going their way, it's drama streams. And so that's what you see. All drama all the time. Or they'll do the red pill stuff and stuff like that. What's up, Propas? The Buccos were good, but I believe they've lost 10 in a row. Now, that was a couple days ago, so maybe since I've been at work, they've won one. But it was quite the slide there. So that's usually what happens. And the truth of the matter is, if they were serious about politics, they know that I'm probably, I'll sort of humble brag here. I'm definitely one of the better right-wing, quote-unquote right-wing debaters out there. They don't want to debate me. They don't want to, one-on-one. And so, they're not serious. I will debate anyone, with few exceptions, at least once. If it was an obvious shit show or something like that, maybe not. But I've debated people whose ideologies on the left or the right that I massively disagree with. I debated Richard Spencer, who was considered one of the biggest white nationalists in the country. Debated Sean Last and G.F. Gariepi. Both of them are more right-wing than me. I've debated Big Papa Fascist he coming from more of a right-wing position than me. And certainly the same is true on the left. There are some people that I've interacted with. I choose to not interact anymore. Yeah, Vosh, right. Vosh is not going to debate me. Actual Justice Warrior, I did see part of that. Yeah, he's good. Sean's good. AJW's good. I would love to do a video with him at some point, a live stream or something like that. And good for him getting on Timcast. I am not one of these streamers who begrudges anyone success. I even say the same about people on the left whose ideology I don't like. For example, Destiny. Destiny does so much better than me as far as being an entertaining streamer. His politics sucks. I'm a better debater. But he puts in the work. He puts in the hours. He's built up a community. Good for him. I don't begrudge that. And, I have a full-time job and a family. If I got paid, if I got one of these kick deals where I was making $100 million to stream every night, then I would do that. No problem. I like doing this. But I'm not going to begrudge anyone. So there are right-wing people that I like. Sean's a rhino. That's somewhat, yeah. Yeah, the drama moves the needle. That's exactly. It's easy content. It's easy to just come on and Jerry Springer it up. I have no interest in it. Having said that, I used to watch Steve Wilkos' show all the time. I used to watch professional wrestling when I was in high school and my first year or so in college. So whatever floats your boat as far as entertainment. If you like the drama of streaming, I don't begrudge that. I do all kinds of stupid stuff. How many subs do we get? If you all could get me $1 million worth of subs, don't do it on Twitch though. They'll keep half of it. $1 million worth of subs, then I'll quit my job and I'll stream. Sound good? But yeah. Hopefully I'll reach out to Sean at some point. Would still love to get on Timcast. I think that would be fantastic. I think I would be good on there. Seeing 40,000 is not going to do it. That wouldn't be enough money. I've mentioned before I was offered a job through Trump's 2020 campaign. It was going to be like $30,000 for the year, which would have been a pay cut for me. But also there's no guaranteed into the future. Obviously, if Trump didn't win, are they going to keep paying me $30,000 a year? And that's not going to be enough. Understand this, like I was an old father. I had my first son when I was 36. That changes everything. My life is no longer my own. My primary job and duty in this world is to make sure that my son is taken care of and my wife. And so, I have friends that are about my age. I'm getting close to 40. I'm 38 right now. I'll be 39 on July 4th. So when's that, Tuesday? And friends that were in bands and stuff. Look, you gotta give that shit up and get a job when you have kids to take care of, right? Would it have been easier to have kids earlier? Yes. I wish I'd had kids like the first year that I got married with my wife, but it wasn't necessary. There was medical issues We didn't think we'd be able to have kids, so it was a happy surprise that we were able to. But had we had them earlier, I think that would have been great. I do worry. I'm trying to get healthy because I'm worried about being an old dad. I'm worried about my son wanting to play baseball and stuff when he's 8, and I'm fat and out of shape. So I'm trying real hard. I've lost some weight. I did a stream last week about that. Yeah, that's where we're at. So, the coup, right? We talked about the coup and we talked about Pride Week. There were two things going on. So this weekend was crazy news week. And I had a couple people reach out to me in Discord, which I forgot to get back to them, and ask me, thank you, Ogre, I appreciate it. And ask me what I thought of the coup. And, I should have replied, what I think about the coup is that the FBI continues to engage in that coup. That's the coup I'm concerned with. The coup that our intelligence agencies have committed and continue to commit in conjunction with other establishment institutions, including the mainstream media. That is far more impactful to me as an American than what's going on in Russia. But we'll talk about what's going on in Russia. So, one of the things when it comes to the Russia-Ukraine situation, I kind of feel bad in saying this, but I'm kind of milquetoast. However, there are very few people that has a similar perspective as I do, which kind of amazes me. Everybody seems to be on one extreme side or the other, and so it's Ukraine is the greatest country that's ever existed, and Russia is worse than Nazi Germany, and do everything possible to stop the Russians. They're the most evil people ever. Or NATO's backing Ukraine and they're corrupt, and Russia's fighting against the corrupt globalists, and Russia's going to win and we're cheering for them. I don't like either side. I don't care. I just want peace. That's it. I tend to want Ukraine to win, quote unquote, but whatever saves the most lives and ends the conflict as soon as possible is the desired outcome that I want. I think both sides are corrupt. I think that all the information that you're getting is incredibly hard to trust because all sides are experts at propaganda and have a vested interest in straight up lying to you or spinning every story to make their own side look good. And so when something happens, right, like, let me give you an example, the Nord Stream pipeline. Or remember when Zelensky came out and said, a Russian bomb hit Poland. It hit Poland. Now they got to invoke, Article 13 or whatever and bring NATO because Russia just bombed Poland. My take has been the same, and I'm kind of, believe it or not, as milquetoast as this is, I'm proud of it, where I've tried to not say anything definitive until some time has passed when it comes to all these individual situations. Now, the Nord Stream situation, it didn't make sense that Russia would bomb their own pipeline, but I always left it open to evidence that they did. It seems now pretty likely that it wasn't Russia bombing their own pipeline. Similar questions with the dam that was blown up there. A better chance that Russia blew up that dam than the Nord Stream pipeline, but still equally likely chance that Ukraine blew that up. Then this coup situation happened, and it is just amazing to me how many times the same characters that are experts on this situation are going to run out there and they're going to say, this is what this means, this is what's going on, here's what's happening in the ground. And then be made fools every single time. The same people that were telling you about the ghost of Kiev are out there telling you, yeah, fog of war, that's great. Styx is great. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah. And so, it's still difficult to understand exactly what happened, and the reaction doesn't really make sense. But as always, I think the most illuminating thing is watching how people react to what they think is going on. And to me, that was the big story here. Because let's assume that everything is on the up and up, and there was a coup attempt. How do you pronounce the game? Prigozhin? I don't know. the general of Wagner group or whatever there. I'm not good at pronouncing any names. Yeah, Prigozhin. That's it. Let's assume that it was an actual coup. Now, his version of events, I believe this is the official version that we were told, was that Shoigun, or whatever, a guy who's in charge of the state branch of the Russian military, attacked the Wagner group. The Wagner group is a mercenary group that's kind of unofficially Russian. Prigozhin claims that the Wagner group's people were bombed by state troops, and so he wanted this Shoigun guy punished and brought out and blah, 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 and he was marching towards Moscow. Let's assume that's true. It was amazing to me to watch how many people that are pro-Ukraine, people with Ukrainian flags, etc., celebrating this. There is this, and I'm guilty of this at sometimes as well. But I do pretty good. You have to constantly remind yourself things could always get worse. Even if you're looking at a particular situation in a vacuum, most of the time it could get worse. As bad as things are in our country with corruption and all sorts of cultural weird shit, which we'll talk about here in a bit, that's going on, we're still, the fact that we live in the United States of America at this time makes us amongst the luckiest people that have ever lived. Like, you understand, the vast majority of human history has been incredibly dangerous and tough. And so we're pretty soft. I'm definitely soft. So we're supposed to cheer this Prigozhin guy, who's a mercenary leader, who it appears is a more competent military tactician, who it seems is quite likely to be more aggressive. Taking control of a country with one of the world's largest nuclear stockpiles. Mercenaries taking over nuclear weapons. And Twitter was abuzz with neocons and establishment shitlibs and Ukrainian flag bio people. Giddy! Oh boy, I hope he takes out Putin. And now, I don't like Putin. But one of the things I've said from even before the start of this conflict was that you ought to be careful before you cheer for massive amounts of instability in countries with huge nuclear stockpiles. You'll remember a debate I had with Dylan Burns 3 years ago or so surrounding Syria. Or maybe it was 2 years ago. I don't know. It was before the 2020 election. And we went into the back and forth about he was upset that Trump tried to pull troops out of Syria because it would screw over the Kurds. And I was talking about how absurd it is that we are in this military alliance NATO and we station nuclear weapons in Turkey. And Turkey's our alliance, that we're duty bound to defend them, even going to war if they're attacked. But at the same time, we have to stay in Syria forever because our allies, the Turks, are genocidal maniacs that will kill our allies, the Kurds, as soon as we leave the battlefield. And how insane that is. And Dylan and me went back and forth. And at the end of that conversation, I said, don't you think it's dangerous that we're intentionally antagonizing Assad, whose greatest ally is Vladimir Putin in Russia? Don't you think that could worsen relations? And wouldn't that potentially, seeing as how, Russia is nuclear armed, that could be a dangerous situation? No, they said. Well, here we are. The same people that cheered that on, that cheered the expansion of NATO, that cheered the, violating the sovereignty of Syria, antagonizing Russia in a litany of ways, none of them ate crow when Russia invaded. None of them were like, oh, well, and it's possible to do so. It's possible to say, maybe we should have been antagonizing, but Russia's still the villain here. It's a reasonable perspective. But they didn't. I saw that, Bleezers. Maybe we'll talk about that a little too. They didn't. Now those same people that are telling you, oh, yeah, it's good that this mercenary general is going to hopefully take over Russia. Are you kidding me? Yeah, Twitch Tweaker, right. Now, I didn't know. It could have been exactly as we were being told. It could have been exactly as how the pro-Ukrainian people were saying. But regardless of the outcome, the fact that people were cheering an outcome that would be a mercenary leader being in charge of Russia and their nuclear stockpile shows just how unhinged these people are. By the way, I'd like to see a Venn diagram of those people that wanted Prigozhin to take over and thought that'd be a great thing. A Venn diagram of them and the lefty people that were cheering on the billionaires that died in that sub. Because that happened. Ghouls, monsters. Remember, we saw this with COVID. They were more than happy to cheer for people dying of COVID. They thought you deserved it. They wanted to take your kids away. They wanted you to die. They made Reddits the Herman Cain Awards. Ha ha ha. It's the same people that are like, we should just get rid of fossil fuels. Ah! Did I say Venn? Venn. V-N-N. Yeah, Kamala would be fine. These people are... The people running things are evil, horrible. They hate you. They want a return to feudalism where they're lords and you're just chattel and slavery and serfs. But many of the people are just stupid that go along with it. They think they're going to be in a position of prominence. Oh, I'll be one of the lords. Communism shows us what will happen. Just go back and look at the Soviet Union and Mao's China. Yeah, New York City's at war with pizza. That's right. Thank you, Shenanigans. So these people are telling you they're moral, they're great, they're better people than you. It's good that a mercenary's going to take over the nuclear stockpile of Russia. There's always been a chance, the longer this conflict goes on, that it escalates to nuclear weapons being used or World War III. Does not look like I understand what Ukrainians were cheering for. Sure I do. They were cheering for the hope that if Prigozhin took out Vladimir Putin, that he would then split the forces, which would mean they wouldn't be able to focus the front on Ukraine, and they would withdraw from Ukraine, and Ukraine would be able to take back their sovereignty. They're also cheering for a mercenary leader to have a nuclear stockpile. And just like everything surrounding Ukraine, their narrative has always been out of both sides of their mouth. Such as, I've said this many a times, Russia doesn't have a chance, it's all over. Remember I debated Beckett and Destiny and Dylan Burns, right? And they said, Russia's a paper tiger, it's all over. It's all over. They can't win. Maybe they'll keep some small areas of Ukraine, but they ain't getting Kiev. And that they can't go further. Maybe Moldova. That would be it. But it's over. It's over. Please send us billions of dollars. Please. We have to fight them over there so we don't fight them over here. Both sides of their mouth. Right? If it's over, why are we sending more money? Oh, well, because we need billions perpetually. But another out of both sides of their mouth. Vladimir Putin is an unhinged maniac. My God, you can't have peace negotiations with him. He's unhinged. This is about personal pride for him. He will refuse to lose face. He'll do whatever it takes. Really, Wow, that sounds terrible. It sounds like it could possibly escalate to nuclear weapons. No, it would never come to that. He's a sensible gentleman. He's sensible. He's not going to escalate like that. People treat this shit like it's a video game. I see it. I see the videos. I don't even have the stomach to watch them. Videos of both sides. Pro-Russian side, pro-Ukrainian side. Look at these videos of people being shot and killed and soldiers, being tormented. And I don't know what it is that makes me different than that. I've never experienced war my entire life. I'm 38. Almost 39. I didn't serve. I had friends that served. One that passed away in Afghanistan. And I understand there's this trope all throughout literature and throughout history of people that have never experienced the horrors of war glorify, yeah, it's great. And those that have experienced the exact opposite. I'm smart enough to learn from my betters, to learn from the patriots, to learn from great people of countries all around the world that have explained in great detail the horrors of war. I don't want to experience it. I don't want anyone to experience it. I don't want people I don't like to experience it. I don't want countries I don't really care for to experience it. And I certainly understand the horrors of nuclear war. A potential to wipe out this planet in a couple blinks of an eye. And yet we play around with it. These people play around with it like it's some game. The same people that tell you, oh my God, you can't use a coal fire or wood fire stove in New York. Thanks so much, Gizmo. I appreciate the cheer. Oh, the climate's going to kill us all. But they'll play games with nuclear war. So that was my big takeaway. How many people were just like, yay! A mercenary taking over a nuclear arsenal. As far as what was happening on the ground, as I've said before, I don't know. Both sides have a vested interest in lying. There are things that I will make definitive statements on, such as the corruption surrounding the FBI and things like that. That I researched, that I know more. I don't really use Telegram much to see what's going on the ground in Russia and Ukraine. That seems like one of the best places to be, to try to find the most accurate information. But understand, that's still going to be propagandized to you. Same with Twitter. But it's certainly better than what you're getting from our mainstream media, or for that matter, Russia's state media. They're going to bullshit you, both sides. But let's talk about what I think happened now that a couple days have gone on. I still have no clue. My confidence level in any of this is to the point of I'm just trying to make somewhat educated guesses. I'm willing to say that I could be completely wrong. I'm just trying to piece together from what we've heard and what it seems people agree upon in order to give some possible scenarios. The first scenario is that it was exactly as we were told. That this was a guy, Prigozhin was a guy fed up with Shoigun, or however you pronounce that guy's name, and kind of upset with Putin. And basically, why would he stop? Well, two reasons. One, because he was offered a better deal by Putin. Or second, because he realized he wasn't going to have the goods to be able to have a successful coup. That's possible. If that's the case, it's still going to be a hostile and volatile situation because assumingly Prigozhin's not going to just take Putin's word, okay, you tried to engage in a coup, it's all good now. And so it's probably still very volatile. Now, it could be, as someone's saying, the CIA paid Wagner to do it. Could be. That's certainly a possibility. I would say, at the very least, in this scenario, if Wagner was going to engage in a coup, he had to have some sort of line of communication with some sort of Western countries, intelligence, etc., of assurances of at least non-intervention. Because Thank you, non-smoker. Thanks for the raid. We're talking about the Russian coup. Appreciate it, non-smoker. Always appreciate the raid. Check out non-smoker's channel. There's another non-shithead Twitch person. There's not many of us. Decided to raise me over a girl with ultra giant boobs. I'm not doing so bad in that front. So, I would assume that there was some sort of communication for people in the Wagner group with the CIA intelligence agencies, etc. Do you have any merch for sale? I used to. I don't have a doll, but I used to have t-shirts. Maybe if I ever stop working 100 hours a week and I get back into streaming more regularly, I'll get some more merch. Thank you, Lazy. I appreciate it. I'm all about self-deprecation. Fat shaming always appreciated here. I've actually lost a decent amount of weight, in part because, albeit a small part, people have constructively shamed me in sometimes funny ways. Now, there's other possibilities. One possibility is that the CIA is reaching out to Prigozhin and Wagner. Wagner goads them along, says, sure, we'll go along with it. They make it look good, like there's this actual coup occurring, but the intent was never to go through with it, and Putin knew about it, and then it was to get some sort of strategic advantage on the West. It could be a strategic advantage in positioning troops in different ways, while the West was concerned about this potential coup, and so they weren't looking at what was going on the ground necessarily. It could be to goad Ukraine into becoming more offensive, which maybe then they would lose more troops. Or it could just be to throw a wrinkle into Western intelligence, right? Maybe Western intelligence now thinks, we had this down, we had the money, we knew it was going to go on. In reality, they don't know. But I don't know. If this coup had occurred and been successful, there's two possibilities. That it's going to be good, at least in my estimation good, and by that I mean end the war in Ukraine. It could happen. That could have been, perhaps Prigozhin takes over, decides, okay, we're done with this Ukrainian conflict, we're going to try to have some sort of peace deal where we leave Ukraine. That's good. Or it could have been very bad. He could have escalated the attacks in Ukraine or other countries. He could have escalated the amount of weapons they're using, such as a nuclear arsenal. Do I think that Russia and China are the military powerhouses they make themselves out to be? Yes and no. I don't think that it's... Like, Russia, we have this mystique of, like, the Cold War. I think that all of it's good. Like, to me, it's very similar to, before MMA, there was this sort of belief that we all had, well, I don't know about we all, of, like, Bruce Lee and Van Damme and Steven Seagal and how they were these ass kickers and you could throw them in a room with 10 people and they'd beat the hell out of all of them. And then once you see MMA, you're like, oh yeah, that shit's kind of all fake, right? I feel similarly about these militaries. Don't get me wrong, when comparing them, you're comparing them to each other, right? But I feel like all militaries have been overestimated in this sense, right? It's very difficult for them to deal with modern style conflict. For example, despite the overwhelming firepower, troops, on the ground assistance in Afghanistan, the United States got chumped out by a bunch of people in the Taliban. I think the same is true of Russia. Like, invading or holding on to territory is difficult. Fighting defensively is easier. So, is the Russian military these badass, Spetsnaz, Cold War era, they can come in and, maybe not. I'm sure there's troops of that nature that are a high caliber. But as a military in the whole, I think they're poorer than we would have imagined. But Does that mean that it would be easy to just invade their country? No, that's a completely different style of war. But that was the deal with the Ukraine situation. So, the experts all knew, as always, they were making their predictions. They were telling you they never eat crow. I mean, just look at the COVID shit. Yeah, I mean, having a huge nuclear arsenal will garner you that respect to punch above your weight. All right. The other thing I wanted to talk about this evening was the mask slipping off even further on the Pride stuff. So I saw the Krasenstein brothers. I saw George Takei. We saw a bunch of that were commenting on a bunch of Pride rallies that there were videos of, and it's the same stuff that you see almost on a weekly basis, certainly during Pride Month, which is these parades that are open to the public, that are all ages, with people showing their genitals and twerking and wearing sadomasochist gear, with children standing right there. And then the mask slips because instead of just saying, yeah, that shit's wrong, that's terrible, the left has to defend it. So many on the left have to defend it. Now, let me be clear here and piss off some of my audience. I'm not super ridiculous. I don't want to say the word ridiculous because that's pejorative. I'm not far right in both the bad way or what you might consider the good way, like very conservative. I support gay marriage. I think as a bad Christian, which I am a bad Christian, homosexuality I feel is a sin, but I feel it's not really my place to judge it. I think it's a sin in the same way that sex or sexual acts in a non-matrimony relationship is a sin. And that's a sin I've committed. And many, many other people. Yeah, do what you want, but behind closed doors. I have friends that are gay. They're some of my best friends in the world. I just don't care. And I can say that I've been consistent on this almost all of my life, at least my adult life. I had a group of friends that we weren't we're big talkers, but we weren't. The two things that we never were big in was bragging about hooking up with a bunch of people or bragging about how we kick a bunch of people's asses. It wasn't really our thing. We had fun in other ways, So if there were a guy sitting around oh man, I hooked up with this chick last night, we all kind of just rolled our eyes okay dude, whatever. Don't give a shit. I just don't want to hear about it. I don't. Now, if it's a funny story or something, that's one thing. But just your sex life, I don't care. I just don't care. As long as it's consensual, I don't care. Right, that's where I'm at. The slow creep of it's where it's hard not to notice. So, when I debate someone like Andrew Wilson, Big Papa Fascist, who's a friend of mine, right? At the Crucible. Thanks so much, Changebox. I appreciate the sub. Really do. He is making the argument that gay marriage led to a predictable slippery slope that would end with acceptance of pedophilia. And that's the trend we're heading in. That is where this ends. Well, it actually won't end there, but that's where it's going. I just disagree with the starting point. That's my issue. Let me give you an example. You could say, how do I put this? Allowing private property will inevitably lead to pollution, we'll say. So we have a country that has private property, and then you could point to pollution. And then someone could say, aha, I told you, slippery slope. It's a difficult concept, and by no means am I a philosopher or an academic, just an average person. But it's something I think about quite frequently. Most of us have political positions or philosophies that are in some sort of threshold. So the easiest way to look at it is this. You're an ANCAP. Thanks so much, Changebucks. Really generous of you. I really appreciate it. I've had Popeye's chicken once in my life. There's none around here where I'm at. So one time I was down south and I enjoyed it, but yeah, like a $5 meal or something. Thanks, Changebucks. I really appreciate it. Very cool. I didn't do it yet, Daz Splits. Maybe we'll do it here next week. So you're an ANCAP, or you're a complete statist, a communist or a fascist, right? So take a particular issue. So one I use quite frequently was COVID. Does the government ever have the right to restrict some of your freedoms over an illness? I would say yes. For example, let's say a dirty bomb is released in New York City, and it is so contagious that it kills 70% of people that are infected. And the biological virus that was released is heavily contagious. They may want to quarantine and isolate those people, even if it's against their will. Or in my line of work, we could see in the state of Pennsylvania, you have what's called a 302. 302 is a forced hospitalization. Sometimes it happens. I just think... Now, you could say, no, the government never is allowed to do that. And I've had this argument or discussion with Fabian Liberty. He would say, no, the government could never do this. If I come down with a disease that is super infectious and I know it, and I say, I choose to walk in all public areas and spread the disease, I don't give a shit. Fabian says, I have to be allowed to do that. The government does not have the right to say, no, you can't do that. I disagree. But do you believe the government has the right to tell you, no matter what, any illness, you have a common cold? Nope, government says we're allowed to bar you in your home until we see fit. Of course not. I would say that's bad as well. So then we have a threshold. Well, when is the government allowed to do it? My threshold is someone who's... I hate to even use this term because I know people like Casimir and Fabian would be pissed about it. But I would consider myself libertarian adjacent. So I value personal liberty very highly. And so I would say that there has to be an incredible threshold for when the government is allowed to restrict those things temporarily. That would be my position. Your threshold might be slightly smaller. And it's important when it comes to policy, right? So look at COVID and the lockdowns and things like that. People will say, well, but if it was going to kill, 300 million people in the United States, the government wouldn't have the right to act? Okay, maybe. Okay, well then the lockdowns were cool. No. Because the threshold was never that. And so I said, well, if the government's going to do something like this, they have to meet these barriers before they could even suggest doing it. First, they have to articulate what their threshold is for when they're allowed to take action. So we think that 100,000 people could die of this disease. And at that number, we feel that as a government, we're allowed to act in these ways to restrict your constitutional rights. I would disagree with that, 100,000 people. But they have to articulate. Here's why. You remember bird flu? Remember West Nile? Remember Mad Cow? And on and on and on and on. MRSA? Right? What if we would have had lockdowns for every one of those. Imagine how the devastation, the economic devastation, the health impacts of locking people down, etc. If we locked down, because all of those we were told were going to be horrible. So what made COVID different? What did we know and when did we know it that justified these? What was the threshold? What was the threshold that bird flu didn't meet but COVID did that justified the lockdowns? Then you had to articulate how many lives would be saved. You had to articulate what the cost was. You had to articulate how certain you were. You had to show all of your evidence to be able to suggest this is what we're looking at to try to make these decisions. So the threshold would be very high. Thanks so much, Trained. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the follow. So it's sort of a threshold. That's how I feel about sexuality. About the LGBT. There are those that are like, nope, never. Bible says this, that's it. It should be banned. It should be outlawed. Illegal. Then there are those that say, there should be no law restricting whatsoever. People want to get nude in front of kids, go for it. We should teach sexuality to kindergartners. Most of us fall somewhere in between. Thanks, Ogre. Not Ogre. Ogre, not in between. So then the question is, okay, well, where is your threshold? Maybe you're like, gay marriage, it's fine, but we're not going to have sexuality of children. We're not going to have public displays of nudity. Or maybe you're like, I don't mind gay marriage, but I don't want this pride shit, even if it's not in your face nude. Thank you, Captain. I appreciate it. Really do. Even if it's not nudity and, things like, I still don't want to celebrate someone's sexuality. I fall in the category of, I don't give a shit. What you do in your bedroom, as long as it's consenting, is fine. I'm fucking tired of celebrating it. I'm tired. To me, who you're interested in sexually is one of the least interesting things about you. You might as well tell me your horoscope. I just don't give a shit. I don't. I don't give a shit what gender you identify as. I don't give a shit. I don't care. At all. You got a sense of humor? You fun to be around? You a decent person? Good enough for me. Don't give a shit. You start throwing it in my face, I'm tired of it. And here's the thing. It'd be one thing if it was just individuals. So take the trans issue. If it's just individuals, I don't give a shit. And so if someone comes up to me and says, I'm trans and I want to go by these pronouns, I would be like, as on an individual level, you're like, okay, I don't give a shit. It's the same as like if you're vegan. If you're vegan and you're not throwing it in people's face, more power to you. You come over to my place and I make burgers and you're like, oh shit, I can't eat those. I don't eat meat. I'd be like, oh, let's see if I got anything for you. Sorry about that. Didn't know. Or if I did know, I'd be like, fuck, I forgot. That's it. No big deal. But if you're like, I can't believe you're eating meat. You knew I was coming over, but I'd be like, oh, fuck yourself. Then don't come to my house. I used to have this policy, by the way. When I was in college, our house, it was 30 South at Sheridan. We called it the Dirty 30, our apartment. It was a party house. It was a fucking mess. And then I moved out of there with some different roommates, and we were far more reasonable. We actually had a clean apartment, and we still had people over. But one of the roommates was not cool with cigarettes in the house. And so a bunch of my shitbird friends would come over, and I'd be like, hey, you got to go outside to smoke. And they'd get all mad. And my rule was this, like, here's the deal. My house, my rules. Your house, your rules. If I go over to your house and you're lighting up cigarettes and I don't like it, I'll leave. If you're lighting up weed and I don't like it, I'll leave. If you're smoking a crack pipe and I don't like it, I'll leave. Whatever. I'm not going to call the police. I'm not comfortable with this, or I'll shut my mouth. That's it. It's your house. But I ask the same respect in my house, right? That's all. But the problem is it's not individual. That's not what's going on. There is a political and cultural agenda. And it has to do with sort of, I'm not going to get into ESG and DEI and postmodernism and sort of the communist roots of what's going on here. But it has to do with breaking down the idea of truth. It has to do with molding people to become political and cultural activists. That's what it is. When you break someone down and then you give them an identity that makes them feel like a victim and they're special and they're privileged, they're basically like your soldiers. And that's what's going on. If you come to my house, you could smoke on the porch. I have a son now, so it's a little different. But at one point, I wouldn't give a shit. This is no longer the policy at my place, right? It's no longer the policy at my place. But at one point, the rule in the Dirty 30 was no heroin. That was the rule. No heroin. If I catch you with that shit, you're out. But that was about it. That was about... Now, I didn't see everything. I didn't see crack. I didn't see meth. But just about everything else. I'm sure meth would have quickly got out of hand and we would have said no. But I never saw it. But I did see heroin. And I was like, no more. 1. Well, that's not true. 3. I'll tell you a brief story. This is a true story. I will censor the names, right? So when I did debate, I was a debate judge at this point, a coach and a judge. Oftentimes we would have to fly places. So what I did was I kept a suitcase, a real cheap suitcase I had, with my dress clothes in it. So let's say I'm from Pennsylvania, so let's say we were flying to Florida. Right? And we fly down to Florida. Most of the time we drove, if it was on the East Coast, even Florida. But let's say we fly to Florida. What I would do is I would come back. As soon as I got back, I would go to the laundromat. I would wash my dress clothes, fold them up nicely, put them in my suitcase, and then I'm good to go. Like a month later, we're going to Texas. Okay, good. So I worked crazy. It was when I started this line of work, I was doing home health care. I was working crazy hours like I am now. And so there was a month, I believe it was 2009? I don't know, somewhere around there. I had worked nonstop the entire month of July. The entire month. And when I say the entire month, I was literally getting paid 168 hours a week. Because the rule is you have to have at least 5 hours of consecutive sleep. The gentleman I was working with was manic. So he would sleep a half hour here, 2 hours there. And so I would just sleep when that person slept. And it was you didn't want to be sleeping if he was awake. It was an incredibly dangerous environment to be in. So I would come back to my apartment. And at this point, by the way, I was the only one paying rent. But there was like 4 or 5 people that just slept on couches and shit and stuff were always there. So I would come back and sleep sometimes. So this one time after that July, it wasn't that bad like it was that July, but it was still crazy hours. So oftentimes I would work 2-3 days in a row and then go home and sleep for 10 hours and then go back to work. So it was one of those days where it was like 1 a.m. I got to come home and I got to sleep until like noon or whatever the next day. I had to go in. And I came in my house and I flicked on the light and it was like cockroaches. There were junkies in my house. And my one good friend who was invited, who was welcome there, he was a junkie and he brought these junkie friends with him. And I was just like, hey man, you guys got to get out of here in the morning. You can sleep, but you got to get out of here. So I go up in my room and there's some random dude just sleeping in my bed. And I'm like, hey, you got to go, man. You can go downstairs or whatever. I'm asleep. And he likes all flustered, like scurries out, whatever. Shut the door, lock the door, sleep. So then like a day later, I decided I was going on another debate trip. And so I, for whatever reason, decided to check my suitcase. Because I was like, I got to make sure there's dress socks or something. I open it up and right on top is a big wallet. And I open up the wallet and there's like 3 or 4 credit cards in different names. There's a bag of weed. There's a bag of coke. There's stamp bags of heroin. This was in my suitcase that I was about to that weekend not open and then take to the airport. Which I would have been like the guys you see in Cops all the time. Those aren't my pants. Yeah, right. So I'd have been looking at like 10 years in prison. So I call my friend, who was the one I knew that knew these people, and I was like, God damn it, I almost went to prison. What are you doing? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm just screaming at him. For like 5 minutes, I'm screaming at him. And finally, he's like, I'm sorry. And then he pauses and he's like, so what'd you do with the heroin? That's how bad being a junkie is, man. You know, he's like, I'd have taken the rap. I was like, no, you wouldn't have. Bullshit. And so we, you know, at my house then, that I was the only one paying rent, I was like, none of this shit. Done. Nothing like that. I flushed it. That's what I did. I was never a fan of downers. Like, I just wasn't. I didn't get it. Like, you walk into a party and you see people drunk. Many times they're having fun. You see people, like, high on weed. Many times they're having fun. You see people on uppers, like, you know, cocaine or stuff. Many times they're energetic, having fun. I'm not telling people to do any of this stuff. I'm not. But you see the appeal of it. Like, let's take something that's legal, like alcohol, right? You can see the appeal. Now, being a drunk is terrible. It's shit. And watching people overindulge is a mess. There's nothing worse than a horrible blackout messy drunk. I get that, right? But if you've never drank before, if you're 21 and you've never drank, and you go to the bar and you see people having fun and dancing and singing, you might be like, I can see the appeal of that. I don't get the appeal of downers. I don't get it. You look at these people, you're like, wow, that looks great. Non-smoker says, yeah, I hear you, man. And here's the thing. I didn't mean to get off on this tangent. You know, I had another friend who was younger. He's considerably younger than me, probably like 4 years younger than me. And he started hanging out with these dudes that I was from. Now, I'm a weird person. I, in some sense, have zero willpower. Like, I'm overweight. I was an alcoholic. But in other senses, with certain shit, I have really good willpower. So I was able, all my life, to hang around with serious drug users and never really get into a lot of it. So, like, you know, marijuana and stuff, I had asthma, so I never really was into smoking. I'm not going to lie. And I did other shit, don't get me wrong, right? But I was able to hang around with people that were, like, all night, like, oh, where are we going to find the next score and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I'm just doing my thing. It's fine, right? And so this younger guy that I was friends with, he starts to get like 17, 18, and he's hanging out with these other dudes I know that are into more serious shit. And he starts talking, oh, I wondered, you know, about heroin. And I was like, don't do it, man. Don't do it. And he's like, oh, that's what they said about weed. I'm like, nah, it's different. It's different. Just don't do it. And of course he did. And I remember talking to him after like a month. He was strung out, and he was like, no, man, you don't understand. It feels great. And I was like, well, of course it does. Of course it feels great. People aren't addicted to it, selling everything in their lives, losing every relationship because it feels like shit when you're doing it. Might feel like shit afterwards. It ruins your life. But of course it feels great. And unfortunately, that guy had a difficult life. I've since heard he's been clean for 4 years or so, has a family, so good for him. But yeah, it was something that he struggled with, and I was there when he was 18 when he was telling me I'm going to do this, and I was like, not yet, only. So, anyways, how did I get off on this drug tangent? The point I was trying to make is there's a threshold thing, right? And we're not all going to agree with each other, right? There are people that support me, that like me. Again, I could use, because I know he wouldn't mind, Andrew Wilson, right? Andrew is like, I disagree with Rob on gay marriage, right? But he also understands that when it comes to stopping the most egregious parts that we both agree are terrible, that you should take allies where you can. They're trying to sexualize children. That's what's happening. Children are innocent. If you're a postmodernist, if you're one of these communists, you don't believe that truth exist, capital T truth. All truth is subjective. That's why you're able to change your gender. That's why they're attacking biological sex, because they need to attack every single truth statement that exists. Every single truth statement about your identity. One of those truths is sexual reality. One of those truths is the innocence of children. And they're attacking both. Can I elaborate on how my views with homosexuality mesh with your faith? Yeah, because I'm a bad Christian. That's how. Because I feel it's up to God to judge people for those things and not me. Because I feel that we're all sinners of varying degrees. Because I feel that my political philosophy is that I don't want a religious government. Because who's to say my religion would win, first and foremost. And so we should encourage as much liberty as possible, even if that means people making bad decisions that affect themselves. I don't want a government that says you can't be gluttonous because of the religion. That's a deadly sin. So therefore the government will restrict what you could eat. I feel the same with sexuality. Am I a Protestant? I would consider myself non-denominational. I believe Jesus is the Son of God. I'm not even super familiar with the Bible. There are certain things that are beyond my ability to accept. Two of the most blatant ones are the sexuality of children and people that support abortion up till 9 months. Those to me are so monstrous that I will judge. But even abortion, I understand how someone could be for early trimester abortions. It's not something I would do. It's not something I would recommend to anyone. But I understand saying, well, we don't understand, we're weighing complicated issues, etc., etc. It is cut and dry. You're for 8, 9 months abortions, you're a fucking monster. You're for the sexualization of children, you're a monster. We cannot coexist with you. Period. And they've been outing themselves on the sexuality of children over and over and over. And what's terrible is the people that are pushing back at it, because we have these incredibly powerful institutions that are all pushing the other way, it's difficult to crack through with your message. Abortion's one as well. Pro-life people allow the pro-choice people to shape the narrative. And so, if you're someone that's somewhere in between, the narrative you're hearing is, well, what if someone's raped? These crazy religious people think if someone's raped, if a 13-year-old's raped, she should have to force carry that baby to term. And people are like, that's unreasonable. The way to frame the debate is, these fucking nuts want 9-month abortions. That's what they want. That's why they lit up New York City pink. For 9-month abortions. That's what they want. They want to murder babies. Now, you as a normie might be like, well, I don't think that 2 months is a baby. Whatever. You can have that argument or not. But almost everyone in their right mind understands 8, 9 months, that's monstrous. And that's the official Democrat position. What's their position? They tell you over and over, the government should have no right or control over a woman's body. It should be between her and her doctor. That's it. That means if her and her doctor say 9-month abortion, then 9-month abortion. The same is true with the sexuality of children. The establishment shapes the narrative as they're banning books. That's why you see smart people like DeSantis, regardless of what you think of him, this is a brilliant move. And there's others, I've seen other people do this. Bring up the books. These are the books you support? Teaching children anal sex? Oral sex? This is what you want. This is what you want in second grade libraries? And I've been doing this for years. Rob, I thought you were against government overreach, but now you're for censorship? Of course not. That's not censorship. There are certain things that in public institutions, particularly for children, that we could agree shouldn't be there. And for these leftists, right, should we teach Mein Kampf? David Duke wants to come and give a speech at your kid's middle school. Cool, right? The KKK wants to come talk to your first grader? No problem, right? Oh, you're for the censorship. You don't want their material there. Isn't that odd? Now, some of these bills maybe go further than I would go. But that's to be expected. We'll argue about those details when they stop trying to sexualize children. Then we could, once we clear that threshold, then we could say, well, wait a minute, did this bill in Iowa go a little too far with, drag shows, if it's adult only and blah, blah, blah. I'm uninterested in that debate right now. And this is what was amazing this week. You saw the Krasensteins. George Takei, for example, he pointed out, his tweet was something like this. He was like, well, if there weren't nude men riding in bicycles in parades in front of children, conservatives would just make it up on AI. What kind of sense does that make? We might as well be sexually explicit in front of children, because if we don't, then the right wing will just draw pictures that say that we do that. Are you fucking kidding me? The problem's not the picture. The problem's not the AI. The problem is the adults, nude, engaged in sexually explicit activities in front of children. And as always, the left's reaction, and not just a fringe portion, but the mainstream that is the pulse of that party, of the Democratic Party, their reaction's always, Republicans pounce, conservatives pounce. Oh my God. How hard is it to say, you're right, this shit is out of control. Out of control. We still support gay marriage. We think that some people will go further and say we should outlaw gay marriage and we should push back about that. But they absolutely have a point. This shit's fucking crazy. These books in school are crazy. The nudity in front of children, the overly explicit celebration of sexuality, it's crazy. But they can't say that. Krasensteins were out there. They had to do a whole Twitter space to try to walk this back because their comment was like, well, but people took pictures of this adult man nude in front of children and then put it on Twitter. Isn't that bad? And what about nude beaches? Isn't that bad? Dude, if you're making excuses for grown adult men nude in front of children in public spaces, celebrating their sexuality, you're a fucking monster. End. That's simple. That's where it starts. No sexuality in front of children. No nudity in front of children. Now, are there fringe things that people want to talk? Well, what if, you're in what if you're somewhere and, accidentally and blah, blah, blah. I get it. But that's not what we're talking about. And here's the thing. Even though I'm where I am what you do in your bedroom's your business. I fully agree. It's coming. It's more evident every day. They are going to mainstream intercourse with children. That's where this is going. Just put them to the test intellectually. Can you choose your gender? Yes. Okay. Is gender connected to sex? No, it's completely different. Are trans men men? Yes. Okay. Can you choose your race? Well, some people say yes. Can you choose your age? It's easier to determine someone's biological sex than it is their age. Even anthropologists would tell you that. We could see skeletons from thousands of years ago and determine if it was male or female. But if we could arbitrarily change that based on a whim, why can't we do it with age? It could be with things like athletics. Well, this 20-year-old man really wants to play Little League. Who's to stop him? What are you going to say? Biological reality and competitive advantages? Say no? Sorry, that ship's passed. You did that shit with women and men. Right? That shit's gone. So if the 20-year-old wants to play with the 12-year-old, who are you to say no, bigot? If the 12-year-old can consent to hormone therapy and to life-changing surgery, well, maybe they know it would be better for them mentally and emotionally to be in a relationship of a sexual nature. And who's to say that we say that they can't be people that are over what we normally consider an appropriate age? That's where they're going with this shit. I'm saying age is the same as... Well, it doesn't have to be the exact same. I'm saying if I told you 6 years ago that there would have been people saying that biological male is a woman, you would have laughed at them. You'd have said, that's a fucking joke. And that's where we're at. That was an opinion that could get you banned off most of these platforms that I'm on, such as Twitter. If you say, no, I disagree with that, it could get you banned. A White House expert just testified the other day in front of Congress that there are no competitive advantages between men against women athletically. Hilariously said, oh, some men think they could beat Serena Williams at tennis. Right, because they can. Serena Williams is a once-in-a-lifetime athlete as a woman competing against her peers. In fact, not only is her achievements just in the sport of tennis absolutely incredible, but to even come back at a high world-class rate after having a child is phenomenal. I don't give a shit what you think of her politics or her personal life or anything like that. A world-class, once-in-a-lifetime athlete. She would get destroyed by almost all professional men playing tennis and many amateur men. It's true. And yet the experts from the Biden administration are in front of Congress telling us that's not true. Women's soccer, it goes on and on. What do you want to debate about, Albara? People say it's different. No, I didn't see that, Gus. Oh, well, age, how could you say age is the same as gender and sex? Okay, explain to me the difference then. And this is the problem. Like, someone I like on the left, Sonsol got in this big argument for months it was going on. He actually got banned off Twitch for this, for arguing about xenogenders. Do you know what this is? People that say, I'm a deer. I'm an elf. I'm a vampire. That's how I identify. And he was like, this is a fucking joke. What he didn't realize, and I told him this, every argument he's making for why you can't declare yourself a vampire also applies to why you can't declare yourself a man or a woman. Same fucking argument. You just put an arbitrary distinction. Once you say, well, biological reality doesn't matter, the definition of words is how you choose to subjectively define them. And I've started to have this conversation. Right, Cappins gets it. There is no such thing. That's what I was talking about postmodernism. There's no such thing as truth. There is lowercase t truth. If you want an example of how this works, go back and look at the Brett Kavanaugh, Christine Blasey Ford hearings. Remember this? Incredible display. And Kamala Harris and Cory Booker said it over and over and over. Her truth is, not the truth, her truth. And one of the arguments that Democrats were making was, well, it doesn't matter if Kavanaugh did this or not. She thinks it happened. And he has to take that seriously. Bullshit. It happened or it didn't. Having to placate someone because they have a delusion that something happened, and therefore you must be punished for that, is fucking ridiculous. That is the destruction of all society as we know it. anyone who wants to define the word woman, that says that a biological man could be a woman, inevitably will have to say that it is self-determinate. You're a woman if you say you are. They have to say that. Words lose all utility. Then the word woman means nothing. It means nothing at all. If the only criteria for woman is someone who thinks they're a woman, then the word means nothing. I could say DARP. I think you're a DARP. And you'd say, what the hell is a DARP? I've never heard that word. A DARP is someone who thinks they're a DARP. What? What's that? What's the utility of that word? Well, it's because then they allow themselves to change the definitions it sees fit culturally and politically. So I've told you, feminism class that I had in college, this happened. Now, I was familiar with some feminist literature because I debated it quite frequently at a high level. So when my little, state college that I went to, Clarion University, I took this feminism class, and one of the books we had to read was Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And I was like, this is not... Most third-wave feminists would think this is shit, right? Like, this is basically saying there's differences between men and women. So this professor wasn't up on the newest literature. But I remember one day in class, though, she started talking about studies show that children that are raised in a feminine environment do far better than those that are raised in a masculine environment. And I was like, well, what's feminine and masculine? Can you define that? And she's like, well, it's not man and woman. A man could be feminine and a woman could be masculine. Okay, so it's not man and woman. Nope. Okay, so can you define? Well, raising a child in a feminine environment would be nurturing and loving and physical contact and encouragement and education. And a masculine environment would be anger and physical violence and ignoring and abuse. And I was like, oh, so basically the studies say raising your kid in a good environment is good and raising your kid in a shitty environment is bad. That's what the studies say? Great. You made the word masculine mean bad, and you made the word feminine mean good. And I knew what she was doing. And then, about 20 minutes later, she says, well, because someone brings up the objection, and she says, well, this is why traditionally courts have been more likely to give the child to the mother, because they tend to have better outcomes when they're... I was like, oh! So now how quickly we went from feminine could be male or female. It's totally indifferent. It could be either one. How quickly we went from that to... This explains the political outcome that I see. The cultural outcome that I see. You see, that's what they do. And it doesn't matter. Because the postmodernists don't believe in truth. And in fact, they don't believe that there's any sort of real benefit to having a conversation other than a power struggle. That's all it is. By the way, this also applies to what you see with this Peter Hotez and the fact that they're saying, don't debate the conspiracy theorists, don't platform them, don't debate them. Right? That's, in a nutshell, postmodernist philosophy at work. Everything's a power struggle. If you could gain from the power struggle, so be it. They literally believe if you're talking to your child, it's not because you love your child. Thank you so much, Jeff. It's not because you love your child or you have a relationship or something. It's all power struggle, always. So if there's no such thing as truth, then there's no such thing as lying. Right? So, who gives a shit? You can change definitions of words like that. It's all subjective anyways. Everything's subjective. All words are meaningless. They only mean what you say they mean. Consistency is a sign of weakness. Why be consistent? Consistency is like fighting with your arm tied behind your back. The only thing that matters is you winning the power struggle. And so you use every tool at your disposal to do it. And by the way, you will then demand the other side hamper themselves with consistency. It's like how you always see people on the left going, well, what would Jesus do? Is that very Christian? They don't give a shit. They hate Christianity, many of the ones that are saying this. They don't care. They want to hold you to a standard that they are unwilling to hold themselves to. That's what's going on. So given that everything's subjective, why wouldn't age of consent be? And they can't help themselves. Literally, it's not a one-off incident. Incident after incident after incident after incident. In fact, it is more the norm than not, it seems. In most of the large cities, pride parades, to have public displays of nudity and sexually explicit behavior. Publicly. This isn't, oh, we saw it happen once and we were all like, that's bad and it hasn't happened again. That's sort of the point of pride, isn't it? We're throwing it in your face. Right, they pretend it's ironic, but it's not. That's the point. So when you see people come out and say, like George Takei, right? His response isn't, yeah, that's really fucking bad that let me be a left. Let me put my George Takei hat on. Oh my, that's terrible that those gentlemen were nude in front of him. This is not a reason to denigrate all gay people, but oh my, we must stop these sexual displays in front of children. No, they can't do that. They're like, well, what's so wrong with that? What's so wrong with the book in first grade teaching the kids how to give BJs? What's wrong with that? Isn't that like taking your kid to Hooters? First off, you shouldn't take your kid to Hooters. Second off, it's nowhere near the same thing. Well, there's nude beaches. There's rated R movies. Right. It's not happening, but you're a bigot for being against it. It's constantly. I've never ate at Hooters. Ah, 0-2. You damn Europeans. It doesn't even look good. 26-6-23. Come on. Tilted Kilt's another one, right? It's like Hooters, but whatever. Now, I did see someone ask me, before I go here, someone asked about the Proud Boys rally. Thank you, 0-2. Appreciate the follow. Yeah, it's incredible footage. Let's see if I can find that, actually. Here's that George Takei tweet I was telling you about. Even if there were no naked guys on bikes this year, they would find a picture to generate them and push the same agenda anyways. There's no fixing this by calling for self-censoring. Is that what that is? Kranzenstein. Seeing a man naked on a bike isn't going to have much of an impact on any kid. They've likely seen their father or brother before naked. Sharing an uncensored video of naked man on a bike to an audience of 30 million kids on Twitter is arguably worse. There's much worse things the average kid will see or hear offline in a typical week. We'll watch some of this. I don't... how does that make sense? I don't know if those are Proud Boys or what that are chasing the masked people away. They're calling them racist. But I was told they're all racist. Now, let me tell you some of my policy. First, I will not be sharing photos that I've seen going around of allegedly who this person is, because oftentimes what happens is it's the wrong person. And it's a really shitty thing to do if you don't know, to say, this is Jim Smith, here's his picture, he goes to, Princeton, and, he works at a bakery. That's shitty to do if you're wrong, right? So I ain't going to be doing that. Maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong, I don't know. What this definitively proves is there were clearly right-wingers there that were uncomfortable with the racist shit that was being shouted by these masked people, and they felt they were agitators. And they're probably right. There's a 90% chance that they're right. And this happens quite frequently. Remember the khaki-wearing feds at the January 6th protest, the anniversary January 6th protest? Remember that? Yeah, Gavin can be amusing. That's true. Now, does this prove that these were feds? No. There's three possibilities. It could just be that they are white nationalist type people, and so they don't want their face exposed. I would say based on their look and things like that, that seems very unlikely. It always seemed odd. Like, this isn't proof, but like, you would expect the physique of someone who's a white nationalist to not be completely uniform, thin. Sure, there could be some. It's not like if you're in shape, you can't be a white nationalist. But you would expect it to be more organic looking. You wouldn't expect it to be like everybody looks like a Fed, like the khaki-wearing people at the January 6th thing. Secondly, most people that have those beliefs that are willing to go out and protest probably aren't so careful about not being exposed. And you would think that you would, if you're that group, right? So let's say that you're a white nationalist group and you're showing up to like a Trump rally, and all of a sudden they start turning on you. You feel like you would do your best to try to like de-escalate to sort of fit in with them. Albera, my guess is you're Omar. I'm not interested in talking. Just a guess. Now, it could be that these were people that were feds or Fed informants, or it could be that they're just lefties. Remember the Glenn Youngkin, the Nazis that showed up with the tiki torches? Remember that? So it's not like there isn't a history. Hell, we could even see it with the Wagner kidnapping thing. Yeah, Adam Kissinger did put a statement out saying, look at all these blue check marks celebrating these people attacking federal officers. Whoops, slip of the tongue. Whoopsie daisy. So, alright, let's see someone to raid this fine evening. Couple things before I end here. First, consider following me on Rumble and Kick. I would really appreciate it. The links are there. All those, and Twitter as well, if you don't mind. Appreciate it. Secondly, I should be back around 8 to 9 tomorrow. We'll see if I can get a debate or something like that lined up. If not, we'll just be doing the show by myself. Yeah. I had a good time. I hope you all did. Yeah, keep up the weight loss grind. I will try. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Changebox. I appreciate it. Thanks for the subs, too. Thank you to everyone who donated. It means a lot. I am working a lot, but you can never have enough money. It seems like that it's always going somewhere. And honestly, I pay for a Restream subscription that's like $40 a month or something. I've been about breaking even, and I'm still trying to raise money to pay for my computer I have. If I never get the money, it's okay. The money's been spent. I paid off the computer, etc. But it'd be nice. Money's nice. So, but if you want to support me and you don't have money, I get it. I don't have money either. And there's people I would like to support. You could always just recommend me to some people. If you're watching shows like Tim Pool or other big conservative streamers or left-wing streamers, throw my name out there. Try to get their attention. I would love to do some bigger shows and things like that. I'm up to talk to just about anyone. So let's see if we can find someone to raid on Twitch. And I can't stress this enough to my Twitch audience. All of my audience and my platforms I thoroughly enjoy. You know, when it comes to Twitch, it was my first channel where I got a reasonably decent live audience, and I'll always remember that. But they will ban me. It's going to happen. It's definitely going to happen. So, please consider following me at some of those other... Counterpoint's on. We'll rate him. Yeah, Omar. I'm really important. He likes to stay in his bubble. He doesn't want to talk to me. Rumble and Kick. Yep, that's where it's at. And Twitter. I stream to Twitter as well. The only problem with Twitter streaming there is, as it is set up right now, there's no live chat. So it's kind of a bummer. But you could always do a comment thread below it. So as my work schedule starts to lighten here, hopefully into July, hopefully I'll get back to like setting up more debates, streaming in a more regular thing. I'd like to bring back the Arena, which was the Saturday show I have. I just can't do it. I just have no time. I work every Saturday now, so it's been crazy. And I can't, it's one thing when I'm off the clock here at my work office to do a stream or talk to one person. It's another thing to host a panel. That's just not doable. So, all right, thank you so much. Enjoy this raid of Counterpoints. I think you'll like them. You guys are the best. As always, have a good one.
Past this, you can go fuck yourself, and I'm going to sue you and ask for your supervisor. And that's the kind of thing where it's like, if you say that on camera, and this, I think body-worn cameras should be 100% mandatory. If you say that on camera, they take you to jail anyways. You talk to your public defender and talk to the state's attorney's office, and you say, hey, where's the body cam? I object